Bobby Green's just a bellend. Yeah, he's a proper tool, lad.
I feel like I'm the champion of the world. I'm ranked number 1 in the world. I'll fight anybody.
Like I said, it is what it is, and we've got no one's remember his name in Manchester.
Is it worth the damage that you are doing to your reputation amongst UK fans because you're happy to drag us through the night to watch this?
At nearly 6 a.m. in the morning, mind you, local time.
Because you'll be fighting at approximately 5 or so a.m., correct?
5:30, I think. I feel like it should have been a normal time in the UK.
Yeah, I tried to ask the UFC brass.
Yeah.
Can we change the times? Didn't go down well, mate.
Okay, so we got some news recently. They have announced the main card for UFC 304. If you don't know, it's coming back to Manchester, not London, which I keep saying, which is my bad. Some great fights on the card. It's an all-English main card. Now, obviously, people know that we're in England, so there's a little bit of, like, bias, I feel like people are going to say, if we want to talk about this. It is just news, but also it's pretty rare these days to have a main card full of fighters of that home country. I mean, we kind of had it a little bit in Brazil recently, but it does add a bit of specialness, you know, to an event like this. But there's some big names on this card that I think people want to see. Obviously, the Tom Aspinall situation. He's now defending an interim title. Bobby Green, Paddy Pimblett, what a crazy matchup. People are either going to want to see Paddy get smashed or Paddy come back from injury and everything else. He's had twins, all right? Have a fucking heart, Luke. Shut up.
He's already been back from injury. Do you know, everyone in the comments thinks you bully me and be like, are you going to keep taking Alex's shit? And it's like,
You do bully him.
Is that just one guy who's like...
yeah, it's sticking up for me. It's my burner account.
What are you going to do?
Stop bullying Luke.
Don't let him bully you,
And we got the main event, right? Leon versus Bilal, which I said earlier might be the most... like
anticipated rematch in UFC
unanticipated rematch in UFC history. But anyway, 304, we've got this card. Should we ask the guy who was from England but now is from New Zealand what he thinks?
The defector.
Again, I am English-ish, so I might be biased, but just looking up and down that card, like it's a banger. It is a banger, and they announced sort of every fight at the same time, which was a really nice surprise to wake up to.
Is this a consolation prize for it starting at 3 a.m.?
So if you put it that way, yes, maybe. I think this is just how the chips have fallen. Having our best talent that we've got all on the main card is really exciting because all the events since COVID coming back have all been stacked top to bottom with British fighters or Irish fighters or Europeans that we're really familiar with. But this is the first time a main card. And... not only the first time main card full of British fighters, but 2 British champions as well. Obviously, it goes without saying, it's never happened before, and that's really exciting. It doesn't make me get there any easier because I can't afford to go, and even if I could, I don't want to do that. I'll just more than happy sit at home and watch
plus
it.
they're going to stop serving alcohol at like 1 a.m, aren't
they?
So
everyone's going to have a bunch of really pissed off Northerners
sleepy people
in an arena.
It's interesting, right? Because I like that Leon has said... no one's going to remember Bilal's name. The irony of remember the name. He's literally like, no one's going to remember your name when I beat you. And that might actually be the case because there are guys who we have said before, you know, you point to them like, this guy deserves a title shot. And then like they either get it or don't. And then you never really hear about them ever again. So like, you know, the fact that Bilal is finally getting this shot is interesting, but also it's against a guy who's looked so dominant and has been able to oust Usman, who we just never thought was going to lose due to his form. I think Bilal's going to put on a good performance, but it's in danger of making everyone fall asleep at 4 a.m, isn't it? I think that's the real problem.
I mean, watch this turn into, you know, Covington versus Usman. Everybody thought that was just going to be 2 guys canceling each other out in wrestling and their striking not being fun enough. But it actually ended up turning into a great striking battle. It was a lot of fun.
It's kind of like we're rewinding everything, and it's like this is actually the real proper fight this time. Bilal is if he does not win, he's in real trouble of just becoming the most forgettable, highly touted contender there's been for a while. If Bilal, who is known as a really boring guy and a boring fighter, loses to a also potentially boring guy,
you're selling it.
It's great for Leon because he's like, he's becoming this really dominant champion in welterweight, and that only is better for him. Whereas if you lose to a boring guy, I mean, how does the UFC, the UFC don't want to give Bilal a title shot because Leon accepted 3 different opponents, all guys we're all excited about, and he went, no one accepted, and then when Leon said to the UFC, okay, then just give me Bilal, and they went, no. And they might even said no. They might have just put the phone down on him, like because
Cut the cord.
to publicly know the UFC did not value you for 300 when they had to scrape together anything. It's just like, it's fucking wild. So if it really is everything on Bilal to win this fight, isn't it?
Just going back to what you said about like, does this card make the 3 a.m. slot any better, right? Like, I'm not talking about the live event though. I'm talking about at home interest is not the same as that return to England.
Well,
so,
why not? Because it's a pay-per-view.
That's what I'm asking. Is it going to be the same when we get to fight?
I don't think people at home were excited for the first event back to London because, like we said, it's very English centric. We feel that on YouTube when we do talks like this. But I think because there was things like the crowd was so insane and like the Paddy hype and all that shit that went off got such a buzz on social.
It was like a first showcase, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it's like they haven't been here. They were supposed to come in 2020. That was when Tyron Woodley, ironically, was supposed to fight Leon. That fell through. You had all these kind of like emerging stars who just hadn't had their shot really in front of their own home audience. And then finally, you had this opportunity. It was like a coming home party. You can only have a coming home party so often, right? Yeah. So that's different from talking about the quality of the card. Those are all that all like, yes, the quality of the athletes was still there. That not saying it wasn't there, but those particular circumstances were unique. Yeah. I think Leon Edwards versus Bilal is the least exciting matchup on paper. I legitimately think, Manel Kopp, he's no longer the resin champion, but that's what he was. So this is a massive test for Makaev. I think people are really pumped about that. Arnold Allen versus Chikadze, that's violence personified. Bobby Green versus Paddy Pimblett, that's going to be violence. I mean, there's never a boring fight with Bobby Green. And then Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades, this feels like a revenge fight. This is like if you're a massive Bilal fan in reverse from the main event, right? Because now it's the people in their home crowd watching Tom Aspinall potentially get revenge for a shitty first fight. Yeah. Bilal is obviously the opposite of that, right? So I think there's intrigue for every single one of those. The championship has its own weight to it. It has its own merit. That's going to elevate it, obviously. But yeah, for me, the only time that comes to mind where the main event was actually less hyped was probably Amanda Nunes versus Miesha Tate at UFC 300. Out to be.
Yeah, I think matchmaking wise though, this card is great because everyone has decent competition as well. There's something to say about when you go to these international places. It sems to be the UFC like to matchmake that country's fighters a bit more favorably. Yeah, it's happening in London, happens in Brazil an awful lot. Not that they go many more places than that internationally, but it seems like this main card feels like a true pay-per-view. I know the last one we did get treated somewhat handsomely with Leon Usman and Gaethje and Fiziev. Maybe less of the card is kind of like that riding on the coattails of, there's British fighters, so everyone will love it. But this one, it does truly feel like more of a pay-per-view spectacle than just, fan service.
What are you guys most hyped about?
I tell you what, I'm gonna jump aboard the hype train here. I want to see how Paddy Pimblett does, because obviously Tony, everyone was like, this could be it because we all think Paddy's shit, and it's like, no, well, it was fine. He got past Tony. Tony's not the guy he was, so it's kind of there's that asterisk on that bout of. But his stand-up's getting a bit better, but his jiu-jitsu is still impeccable. From a British guy, from a British gym, it's still. It's interesting to have a specialist like that. Like, everyone loves Charlie Olives because he just goes in there and he fucking strikes and then gets a sub when he gets knocked down. It's like all that stuff. So if you can be exciting and you can be dynamic, that's always fun. Like, who doesn't love a flying triangle and shit like that? It's always super cool to see. So if he can get through someone like Bobby Green, who is a really good striker and he can catch you very quickly if you're not paying attention, and someone who gets caught at the start of every fight, and pretty much all the fights he's in, is Paddy. So seeing if he can, if there's a knockdown and Paddy can come out of that situation on top and dominant, and just being really interesting and wrinkled to Paddy to see him go through that adversity.
It's set up to be a really fun fight, I think, in that regard, because you've got a striker versus a grappler, and typically two extremes usually make it an entertaining contest. Not many people have been able to manhandle Bobby Green, though, outside of Islam Makhachev.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the Tom Aspinall story for me is the one that I'm most into right now, because, I mean, this is potentially catastrophic. Yeah. we are definitely believers in Tom Aspinall, and Tom Aspinall has been campaigning for John Jones. If Curtis Blades can upend that is a beyond massive coup.
Setback, basically, for him in a massive way. And
it does a lot for Curtis. I mean, Curtis
has been in this position many times where he's like, I'm about to get a title shot, and then he had to fight Ngannou twice. That happened to him. He had to fight Ngannou, and then who did he fight after that? Derek Lewis, like 3 times he was up for a title and he got knocked out. This is 4th time he's up for a title.
It's so interesting as well because he's not coming long coming off a loss to Pavlovich.
Yeah, he goes. So another time.
Tom just beat, but then obviously the timings work out where he's had a fight against Almeida, beat him in a great knockout as well. And then, so now he's like, Tom wants to fight someone. It's kind of like Tom's having this performance to make a point, isn't he? Being like, I will still, in the time Jones is still away, I'm going to defend the interim belt, which shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be done. It's not how it works, but I'm doing it anyway. So I think I'm more excited. I'm super biased. I think Tom clears Blades like he should have the first time. But I'm more intrigued for what happens afterwards. What he says, what he talks. Does he call not the UFC out, but does he call Jones out, or does he really stake a claim instead of being a consummate professional and being like, yeah, well, I'm the interim champion. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to wait. I'm going to get better. I'm going to have that title shot. I really want him to put a statement out there, take it offline, get in front of the cameras and talk his shit. Like really fucking get that fight. Like it doesn't matter. I don't care if it's against Jones or if it's against Stipe. Just whatever happens in that fight, sign him up for the next fight afterwards to be the champion.
He definitely does.
I want to say before we write him off as well, Arnold Allen, Giga Chikadze is going to be an insanely good fight.
Someone's getting hurt.
Yeah, they're really going to slug it out. And Arnold is, he's been in the UFC a while, but I think that just adds to the fact that off this back of this 2-fight losing streak, we could see him pick up 3 wins and be right back in the title.
I think we might see a bit more. I'm not saying all the way Dan Hooker fight, but I think we might see a bit more because I've seen him have a few interviews and saying he's trying to be measured and he's a bit tentative and he's like taking his time. And with the Evloev fight, I think a lot of people did think Arnold should have won that fight. However, he said himself that like I could have gone more. Like knowing how the reception was and how close the fight felt, if he just would have gone more, he felt like he would have done it. So we might see someone who is feeling a little bit pressure, but also knowing that his competition level is a little bit less in taking a step down to fight Chikadze, who's coming back after a long time, right?
Yeah, Nathaniel Wood's on the card against Pineda, which should be a fun contest as well. And Molly McCann's also coming back. So
I'm more than happy to see Molly McCann just beat up some other woman. Like just to see her rip combinations and just look fucking sick at boxing. I'm more than happy.
She's getting better and better.
She's just changed weight class and she looked really good.
Well, no, to see her
pissed off Molly McCann is a new fighter that unlocked in the last fight.
To see her come back and really like get that armbar finish to make a point of it, and like you could see she was going from it when it went to the ground, and it was just really nice to have that moment of like. Because she had a lot of sticks, people thinking that she was shit, basically, and that you can just take her down and just win easy. And she obviously really proved a point and made that storyline for herself come to a nice ending of like, no, I am a contender. I've come down a new weight. And also, random fun fact, she weighed 2 pounds over the limit when she fought at strawweight.
But, Muhammad Makayev, obviously he's had a couple of what he considers to be let down performances, but he's not losing, ever. He still hasn't. And Manel Cape obviously is high level when he makes weight.
He's the most confident guy, I think, in that weight class. And, who was he calling out? Kai Kara France couldn't get that fight. We wondered why he didn't get the fight at 303 for the belt, probably because of his lack of performances against high-level competition, because he's just had some cancellations. He had a stumble early on against those two. Did he fight Pantoja in his debut?
Manel Cape?
Yeah, exactly.
Or
so
Cop.
That's probably another reason why. But just for that fight, Luke, I mean, come on. Youngest champion in UFC history, potentially still in Makayev. Is he past the date now?
His place gone past
My
that,
bad.
Yeah.
We still got Macy Barber, though. She's going to do it, right?
I think she's gone past now.
Oh, fucking hell. If you enjoyed that edited version of the podcast, there is a fully fledged, uncut version.
Fully fledged, you say?
Yes. Available to memberships only. Wait, I fucked that up. Available to members only if you want to join the membership program. Details down below in the description. $2.99. Access to unedited podcasts and also the writers meeting and a bunch of other fun stuff. You also get to support us as a family.